Welcome to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my co-host, John Barker, 70th District. And as you may be familiar with the show, what happens is when John gets out of the legislature on Fridays, he comes in and we put a show out so you can get the information as quickly as possible. John always brings a special guest with us, and he has today Dan Hawkins, House Majority Leader from the 100th District, which would be part of the Wichita area. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in.
That's all right, Doug.
John, update us. What's gone on in the legislature? We know that there was the State of the State address, and then I'm assuming away it goes.
Yeah, we went in 2 o'clock on Monday and got reorganized, which took about an hour of doing different resolutions, putting ourselves into service. And you've been having a lot of meetings. Tuesday, I had a committee meeting and had some bills introduced. Then Wednesday, or Tuesday night, or Tuesday afternoon, I take that back, we had the State of the Judiciary. Chief Justice Lucard came in. I was able to escort the Supreme Court in. She had a very good speech. I think it's the first time a female Chief Justice has spoken in the chamber. Mm-hmm. Because the last year, of course, the pandemic, and when Kay McFarland was the chief, she made her addresses from the OJA building, the Supreme Court building. So this is the first time, and she and I talked about that, Justice Lucard. And then that evening at 6:30, the governor was escorted in by Dan. Just to help the folks out there, no agency can come into the chamber unless they're escorted by a member of that chamber. So we always have escorts. When the State of the State, when the governor comes in, she's escorted. When the lieutenant governor comes in, he's escorted. When the Supreme Court, we have representatives that go out and escort them in. It's just old English law, the procedures.
Even the Senate gets
and the Senate gets, if they come in our chambers, they get escorted in. So we did have the State of the State, and Dan's got some comments about that, I'm sure. Then Wednesday, our caucus had lost our majority whip, who'd went to the military, and so we had an election. Dan asked me to chair it, and I've chaired about 4 of those elections. We elected a new majority whip, Tori Armberger from out west. She'll do a great job. She had been the assistant whip, and then just had meetings, a lot of meetings this past week. And I've got bills set for hearing this coming week on Wednesday and Thursday. Of course, today being Friday, it was pro forma, which some members left yesterday. And Dan can explain what a pro forma is. He's the one that calls them. We're looking forward to next week, hearings on several bills. One of the bills that I got introduced in the committee was the making sheriff's office a constitutional position. And the reason we're doing that is there are at least one county, the county commissioners would like to do away with the position of sheriff and allow them to appoint their own. So
instead of elections?
Instead of elections, taking the process away from the people and letting the county commissioners decide who should be the chief law enforcement officer or sheriff in that county. So by putting it as a constitutional position, they can't do that. So the Sheriff's Association came to me about it, along with other law enforcement agencies, and asked if I would do that, and I told them that I would. So that's the process that we're going through right now. A number of other things were going on, but I brought my good friend and leader, Dan Hawkins, here. Dan, we got a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, so on the sheriff deal, really what's happened, there's a couple of counties that's had issues where the county commissioners don't agree with the sheriff, and so they just want to do away with the sheriff as an elected position. And quite frankly, whether we do it through a constitutional manner or maybe we even change statute, it does need to be worked on, because we believe, I think most of us believe, that a sheriff should be an elected official and not beholden to any of the other political whims of a county commissioner or a city council. So it's really a pretty pretty important thing.
I would agree.
Get that taken care of. So, we got some other constitutional amendments that are going to happen this year. Value them both will happen in the, which is the regulating the abortion industry. That'll happen in the primary, which will be in August. There's a lot of other constitutional amendments that are being looked at and worked on, but we don't want to pile them up on that one. We want to make sure we really get that value them both taken care of. So you'll probably see a lot of those possibly go to the general election.
Yeah, the November ballot.
Yep.
And also in that constitutional amendment, if you want to impeach or remove a sheriff, presently the county attorney can do that. Well, we've had some problems with that. So it would move that position to the Attorney General, would only have the authority to file for the removal of a sheriff.
Well, that makes sense. We're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with my co-host, as always, John Barker, and Dan Hawkins from the 100th District, Speaker of the House. And Dan, how many times now, how many times have you been the Speaker of the House?
I don't want to give him the big head. He's not the Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Majority Leader.
Like to be
Sorry.
He's the Majority Leader.
I promoted you too soon, didn't I?
That was a Freudian slip or something. So Majority, this is my 4th year as Majority Leader, and my last year, because we kind of have a rule that you only stay in one of these positions 4 years. We have had our current speaker is 6 years, but that's kind of an anomaly.
Because of COVID.
Yeah, it had to do with a lot of different things. The fact that we have an interesting governor to deal with, and so it's just really probably better to keep the current speaker for that 2 years. So, coming up, we'll have an opportunity to see if maybe the caucus will elect me as speaker at the end of the year. So
well, I wouldn't be surprised they would, but as House Majority Leader, what do you do? So, as Majority Leader, I set the calendar for the debate calendar for the caucus, or for the body, actually, for the House of Representatives. So, as the bills come out of committee, all bills come across my desk. At that point, we look at them and really evaluate them to make sure it's something that we really want to do, something that's good for Kansas, and something that's not going to have a whole bunch of adverse amendments that could come against it and really make it into a bad bill. So we in a normal year, we would have about 500 bills introduced in the House, and out of that 500, maybe about 100 or so will come out, 150 will come out of committee to my desk, and out of that, maybe 50 or 60 would be debated and then sent on to the Senate. Same thing happens with the Senate. They have kind of the same ratios. So it's my job really just to make sure that we're doing the right thing when it comes to the bills that come up for debate and that go on to the Senate floor. So you're sort of prioritizing? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. And so we've already started that. We've got bills out there below the line. So we have a line in our calendar. Anything below the line can be debated on the floor. There's a pretty good number of those out there from last year. We've went through and looked at those and really started trying to identify which ones we may use, bring up for debate. We do have one bill that went through judiciary this week having to do with, the governor came out with that executive order. Yeah, well, the declaration, the disaster declaration, and the 2 executive orders. Both of those executive orders, actually, we really kind of agree with. It was reducing regulation on nursing homes and on hospitals, and specifically on being able to have a faster hiring process. It's really tough, especially for nursing homes, to get people to work there, and when they have to go through, like on a CNA, they have to go through the coursework before they can be licensed. Sometimes that can take a long time, and it really puts them in a tough position. And so this executive order reduces those regulations. And so what we did is we really expedited it through the Judiciary Committee, so we can hear that on Tuesday, or actually debate it on Tuesday of next week. So I had to stay there a little late this morning, make sure we got it read in to where to be there Tuesday. So that's actually pretty quick. A lot of times it's 2 to 3 weeks before we have
bills out on the floor ready to be debated, but every once in a while we have these special circumstances where we have to rush something, and this is one of them that we had to do. So we'll debate our first bill next Tuesday. Should pass it out, get it to the Senate. Hopefully they'll concur and just send it right on to the governor.
You're anticipating that this is one because of the virus that is
Yes.
it's a high priority.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And of course we had, John said we had the State of the State. The governor came in and this is her fourth year. She puts forth her priorities during for the year, for the upcoming legislative session, and for the year during the State of the State. She usually introduces what her budget's going to look like, and she doesn't go over the whole budget. She just hits key points. In that, she had a lot of spending, a lot more spending than what we want. She wants to expand Medicaid again, which I'm pretty much against that. Always have been. Will continue to be. She wants to put $600 million into a rainy day fund. We would probably like to put a little bit more than that in there. She wants to give everybody $250. It really was kind of interesting. I think John probably caught this too. During her speech, she told the people of Kansas that they would be receiving $250 each. And it's just not true. She can make that proposal to us, and it's up to us to decide through the appropriation process whether we'll do that or not. But I guarantee you there were a lot of people out there in the state who heard that and thought, wow, I'm going to get $250. For us, it's a little bit tough to do that because what has caused all of the inflation is all of that money that the federal government has sent to the states and various places. It's literally caused the inflation to just run rampant. I think we're running at about 7% now. They're expecting us to get up to as much as 9 or 10 probably before this thing's over. Well, what she's doing with that $250 that she wants to give every filer is causing the inflation to increase also. So it's probably not something we're going to do. In fact, I would say that one's probably DOA. It probably just not going to go anywhere. She proposed a sales tax on food repeal. That's also problematic. And when you start looking at that, if you repeal the whole thing, what's going to happen to the local, the city and the county sales tax on food? How's that going to work? So we've got to really look through those things and make a decision. And is that something we can do? So we're working on that right now.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And we're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson. My co-host, John Barker, is on would be the left side of your screen, and in between us is Dan Hawkins, House Majority Leader. And Dan, let's see, you're out of the 100th district in Wichita. How's the economy? How's everything going in Wichita?
Wichita's kind of like every place else. We're still feeling the pinch. A lot of the restaurant and hospitality industry has been decimated. I've heard that as much as 30% of our restaurants will never open up again in Wichita, and that's a lot. That's truly a lot. So it's but we're not any different than the rest of the state. I think actually as a state, with what we've went through, we've actually done pretty well. In our revenues are showing it. We really have a lot of revenue right now, but there's a big misconception of why we have that. The revenue is unprecedented. We're at about $3 billion in our checkbook right now. That's a massive amount of money, but most of it is because of the federal stimulus money that's rolled into the state. It's one-time money that's not going to stay. It's as it's spent. There's not going to be any money coming in from in behind it to backfill. So we got to be really, really careful. And so as we've went about starting this session off, we've talked to our appropriations committees and our tax committees about really making sure that anything we do is a one-time expenditure and not an expenditure or a program that's going to have to be filled every single year as we continue. Because once that money's gone, we're going to go back to a normal situation where we're lucky to have 7% ending balance, and we're going to have to really watch our P's and Q's. So we've done that. Our leadership team in the House and the Senate have been working pretty good together right now in formulating a large view of what we want. And really what we want is is to have some debt reduction with that money. So pay down some debt, use our rainy day fund, finally fund that, which has never been funded, and then some targeted tax relief. So how that would look is, and I can't remember, and I haven't went back to look, but John, it was during our tenure here that we passed the rainy day fund.
We did. Never funded it. But we passed it.
But we passed it. So we want to put maybe even up to $1 billion in that rainy day fund. You know, if you look back to 2008, 2009, the last real recession, that cost the state about $1 billion when that happened. Mm-hmm. And so if we've got $1 billion in a rainy day fund, when the next one, and it's going to come, when the next recession comes, we will have money to smooth out that situation. That's what we want. In addition, John and I, we both started in 2013. We both immediately were on the Pension and Benefits Committee under Stephen Johnson. You know Stephen Johnson. Right. He's a really smart guy when it comes to pensions, and John and I learned a lot from him. We at that time we had about a 52% funded ratio for capers. Over the years, we've worked really hard to get it up, and we're about 75 or 76 right now. What we want to do is put $1 billion of this $3 billion into paying down our unfunded liability on capers. So that would be the debt relief. That would be the debt reduction piece of it. That would get our unfunded liability to about 80%. So, which is really where we want to be.
Well, yeah. And what do we do at home? We pay our debt. We have debt. We need to pay off the debt. It's one-time money, because if this inflation continues, you know, the states, we're going to spend more money. We don't want to raise taxes. So if we pay down the debt, and Dan, what do we pay? Like $400 or $500 million a year just on debt.
Absolutely.
For capers.
Absolutely.
And if we can pay that debt down $1 billion, it will save us so much money. But the governor didn't want to re-amortize. Mention that.
This
Talk
is the
about
first
that.
time. So the last three state of the state, she's wanted to re-amortize capers, which basically is extending out our length of the time we pay back that debt.
Right.
And that was going to, the first one was going to cost us $7 billion to re-amortize. We never did do that. We stopped that from happening. This time, because we've got so much money, she didn't ask to re-amortize. But we're looking at it is, the governor wants to give $250 to every single tax filer in the state. What does that do for the economy, and what does that do for our people, and what does that do for our state? Very little, almost zero. What if we took that $455 million, put another $550 million with it, $1 billion, and you put it into capers? That's $100 million savings a year in interest that we would have been paying. So you do a $250 gift to every single filer that really doesn't help anything, or we put money towards debt reduction that saves the state $100 million in perpetuity until the unfunded liability is paid off. So another 15 years or so, that's a lot of money. And then the last thing we want to do is some targeted tax relief. And that tax relief is going to look a lot different than what the governor wants. The governor wanted to repeal the sales tax on food. There's some problems with repealing it. So I think what you'll see us do is we'll probably take a small piece off of the top of all sales tax, maybe 0.2% or so, and then a more targeted piece for the sales tax on food, maybe getting it down to maybe the 3 or 3.5% level versus the 6.5% that it is now. So a little bit more targeted. Right. So it's really a pretty good sound plan.
Right, and we're not the only ones that taxes food. Cities do, some counties do. Right. So when she says we're going to remove all taxes, we can't do that. The cities have jurisdiction, and so do the counties. So I think it's a better approach to cut all taxes a percentage for people who buy cars or buy other things, clothes for kids to go to school. So that's what I think.
Well, I like what you're talking about with the with that capers, because we've talked before in shows in prior years about how much what a difference that makes, the interest that you're paying, and it's the same thing that apply to our houses, our own bills,
That's
those
right.
types of things. And so, good job.
Yeah.
We're going to cut away, take a
Okay.
break. We'll be right back. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome back to Legislative Updates, and as always, Dan, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah, I
much. I
appreciate
know
it.
that you've worked all through the week, and now you're headed back to Wichita. And thank you. And
Yep.
John, co-host, thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Wow.
Thank you so much, John, for
Always,
making the
and-
arrangements to come in on Friday, because there's so many people that watch the show. And as people tell me this, we get the straight, honest information coming from there. We're not reading somebody's interpretation in a newspaper. We're able to listen to it and see what's going on. And you guys are doing a good job. And thank you so much for what you do. And have a safe trip to Wichita. And, John, thank you. Thank you
Okay.
for
And
coming back. And really good show, guys. And we'll see you next week, John, for the
We'll
next
have a
segment.
new guest. Not sure who it's going to be,
Okay?
but
They're always interesting, so it'll be great. Thanks for watching. We'll be talking to you next week. Hope you have enjoyed this segment of Legislative Updates with John Barker. I'm Doug Thompson with special guest John Barker. Tune in next time for another Legislative Update.